Now, way back when in the mid-80s, Orion Pictures wanted to bring a new action hero to cinemas that could grow into a franchise, and when sourcing through material, they looked no further than the pulp paperback series The Destroyer, led by a man that producers thought could be a red, white, and blue James Bond. Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins would deliver larger-than-life action. It would grow a cult following, but box office failures resulted in it never getting its planned sequel. So let's dive into this somewhat forgotten 80s gem. Hey, what's up out there, everybody? Thank you as always for stopping by the channel. I hope you're all doing fantastic today. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Anthony DeJoya. This is Movies Never Say Die, your one-stop shop for 80s and 90s retro content. Hit the subscribe button, like the video, and turn on the notifications if you do end up enjoying the video and would like to catch all my new ones when they are released. Now, today's movie, as I said, is a modestly forgotten action gem considering the big plans for this franchise. I first caught the movie on cable as a kid, and I absolutely loved it. The action overall was large scale with a heavy cartoonish vibe, and it easily had 13-year-old me on the edge of my seat. And I do think that despite the years sort of tarnishing the plot and the screenplay and some of the acting and the impact of the score overall, that the stunt work in this movie does hold up nicely, and it does give the action a lasting visual appeal. I think this movie actually does have a great concept for an over-the-top hyper-realistic action movie. However, the plot is where it fails to live up to that potential.
You've got a new face, new fingerprints, even a new name. Williams. Remo Williams.
You have this grizzled NYPD cop named Sam Mackin, who's recruited by a secret organization known as Cure. Mackin's death is faked, his face is surgically altered, his name is changed to Remo Williams, and he's trained in Sinanju by a Korean martial arts expert. Williams learns to dodge bullets and walk on water and eliminate his fear of heights, but Remo's training is cut short when he's sent on his first mission to investigate this weapons procurement program working inside the US Army. And I think this first mission, to be honest, is where the plot gets a bit too basic. I think Remo's origin and his training under Master Chun are enjoyable. They're unique even, and this really does take up a bulk of the runtime. But once Remo is off in the field and investigating a dirty general and his henchmen is where I think things feel a bit bland, as the writing really just fails to create a smooth flow or a genuine sense of evil in the villains, which is where the B-movie elements of Remo Williams begin to take over a bit too much. Now, right out of the gate, there is a huge issue with this movie that certainly won't play well with today's audiences, and to be honest, it was actually a bit in bad taste back in '85 when this movie was made, and that is the casting of Joel Grey as Master Chun. Grey, of course, is white and would undergo 4+ hours of makeup work each day to look Korean, and even more so, the film would be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Makeup.
Fear is nothing more than a feeling. You feel hot, you feel hungry, you feel angry, you feel afraid. Fear can never kill you.
So clearly there is no denying it was just a different time, and I will say that Grey does play the role seriously, or at least toned down, so as insulting as the casting is, the performance in the film isn't so much, although the makeup getting a nomination is a bit comical, as it's clearly noticeable, and to me, even for 1985, just doesn't look that good. Now, as a kid, this movie had so many things working for it. The two large action set pieces, one being the Statue of Liberty sequence, the other being in the woods to close up the film, I think still hold up and look great all these years later, but the acting through adult eyes is a bit suspect in places. Fred Ward is awesome. He had a long career before and after this movie, but his performance as Remo Williams is just fine. He plays it grounded, he has a little bit of swagger to him, he's solid in the action, but he doesn't ever really command this movie, and that's what you need from a memorable action star that's going to get his own franchise. And Ward more often feels like he's just kind of playing this character and not really living it, although again, Ward is given some clunky dialogue at best, so the chance of him pulling this movie off without landing some cheesy moments was practically an impossibility.
I'll show you chop socky, you sawed-off little rump.
Remo Williams as a kid also delivered this fantastic instrumental score that just built so much energy and just felt perfect for the spectacle of an action film just filled with a lining of patriotism. The only problem is, now going back and looking at it, it feels like the score was only about 30 seconds long, and it just being repeated so many times makes it start to become a little bit annoying. It loses a bit of its impact. It's been reported the film had some budget issues and the money kind of ran out towards the end of production, so maybe it was unfinished and they just rolled with what they had. Once it was completed, Remo Williams would drop quietly into theaters in October of 1986, opening in the number 4 spot with a $3.3 million weekend. It would only muster $14.3 million during its theatrical run, which wasn't too good. It was really difficult to find the budget for this movie. I stumbled across an old article stating it was around $40 million and still not enough, so taking that as fact, and even with VHS sales and rentals, it's easy to consider that Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, was a hefty financial loss for Orion Pictures. And I mean, really looking back, you can kind of see why. The movie outside the action has its flaws. In 1985, and the action genre was loaded. People were still buzzing from Rambo 2 earlier in the summer. Arnold's Commando just came out a week before this one, and Chuck Norris's Invasion USA was also released only a few weeks prior to this movie, so there was tons of options for audiences in this genre, and unfortunately, Remo Williams was a casualty of that.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
But as I said, the action in this movie is a good time. It still holds up. This is where the direction of Guy Hamilton really is able to shine. First, the backdrop of New York is pristinely captured. Watching Tune teach Williams to lose his fear of heights by walking along the rooftops is shot with a cool 80s vibe. The stunt work and the practical techniques used during these sequences at Coney Island on the Wonder Wheel is just thrilling and unnerving to watch, and the finale with Remo Williams swinging across the forest on a log is also pretty cool still all these years later. Yet it all pales in comparison to the visual appeal and the tension of the Statue of Liberty sequence. This was a once-in-a-lifetime shoot. The statue was actually undergoing renovations and wrapped with all this scaffolding. They were only allowed to shoot on the caging around the statue in order to never actually touch the Statue of Liberty, so a life-size bust was built down in Mexico, and the shots were intercut in the editing room, resulting in a just breathtaking and completely unique and really an iconic scene for action movies during the 80s. It's just too bad the smaller bits of action, the intrigue of the plot overall, and Ward in the lead failed to live up to expectations. It's been stated that Ed Harris was up for the role, which may have worked a bit better. As much as I love Ward, I think Harris could have potentially carried this film a little bit more effectively, but still, it was 85. Arnold and Stallone were kings. Even Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson were fading from popularity, so trying to kick off a new action franchise with a grounded hero was a bit too premature. It was still a few years before everyday heroes like McClane and Riggs would change the landscape of things, and in the end, Remo Williams, I think, was just a bit too flawed and not really packing that larger-than-life hero it needed to build a franchise, but I certainly think it has its spots of fun with charming waves of nostalgia, so I'm going to give Remo Williams The Adventure Begins a very well-earned C+. And that's it for today, guys. That wraps up my retro review of Remo Williams. It really is a fun film to revisit. You can see its potential. You can sort of laugh at some of its flaws. Let me know down in the comments. Have you seen this movie? If so, what did you think? Thank you guys, as always, for watching. I appreciate you all, and I will see you in my next video. And until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?